You know, a lot of people say, what would you say to kids these days? The biggest thing I would say is they're taught to be good employees. They're taught to work for somebody else. And I can tell you from all the young folks that I've spoken to, they don't like that. That's not their goal. They don't want to trade hours for dollars. They don't want to work the traditional 9 to 5, but they don't know how to get out of that rat race. So one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to the millennials and the Gen Zs is, instead of trading hours for dollars, why don't we teach them how to actually make their money work for them? They all know how to work hard. They don't want to work a 9 to 5. They want to actually chase their dreams. But unfortunately, so many of them are chasing somebody else's dream because that's what they've been taught. They're taught to work for somebody and fulfill on somebody else's dream. I think what we need to do is really instill in the younger generations what was instilled in us. We were taught to be dreamers. When we were young, there was nobody that could tell us that we couldn't accomplish something. And this might not be everybody, but I know I grew up in a lower middle class family, and when I grew up, I had my mother always teaching me to dream. She never put restrictions on that, and I don't think young children, actually have limits until society gets a hold of them, kicks them down, and says, you can't do this. And I think that's a big mistake with our youth today, is they need to be taught that they can do anything they want. But first we need to change the environment in which they operate in. If they work in the environment that we've created for them, we are actually telling them that they have to conform. They have to conform to our dreams, to our ideologies, to what we have either done or not done. And doing that puts them in a little box and doesn't allow them to fulfill on their dreams. That, I think, is a huge problem. But first we got to get down to the aspect of money. We've all been taught, including the younger folks, we've all been taught to give up control of our money. Give it to somebody else, whether it's you putting it in somebody else's bank, a traditional bank, or you putting it in a 401k where you can't touch it for, in their case, 30 years from now. And so that somebody else can make money on our hard-earned dollars. And that's a big problem. First, what we need to teach them is that their money should be in their control. They can be a good steward of their money. They don't have to have an advanced degree in finance to be able to manage these hard-earned dollars. Because if they just learn some simple things, like for example, if they could just change the environment in which their money operated in, their money could then work for them. But unfortunately, that's not what they're taught. They're taught the same things we were taught, and that is, you're not smart enough to manage your own money. You're not smart enough to be a good steward of your money. And that is where the problem begins. Another big problem is what they've been taught to do with their savings. They've been taught to make money and spend that money out there and buy things, short-term things, right? A new car, a new watch, the newest iPhone or the newest Samsung phone, whatever it might be. They make money and that money goes right back out the door. And if you look at statistics, 90 cents of every single dollar that they make is going out to somebody else. It's going out to goods and services. What I'm saying is they're the best consumers there are, because that's what they've been taught to be. But the money that they do save, the 10% that's left, what they've been taught to do with that money is put it in places where that money's not working for them. They're only saving for short-term goals. And I also want you to think about your grandparents. Here's a big thing, your parents and your grandparents. They buy a TV, which was a big purchase that they saved up for. And when that TV stopped working or something went wrong, they fixed the TV, or they got the TV fixed. What do we do today? Well, I can tell you that the young folks, they just go buy a new TV. And what that does is it erodes any future savings they could have, making it so that they can't be in control of their money because every dollar they make, they're giving up to somebody else. And the beauty is all of this stuff, although it is a problem, it has a very simple fix. And really that solution is they just need to learn how to make their money work for them, because if they understood how to change the environment in which the money that they work for operated in, then their money could earn perpetual and uninterrupted compound interest. But they're never taught that, because that doesn't make anybody any extra money. It only makes them money, and that would be defeating against all the people that have gotten used to them giving up control of their money. Warren Buffett said it best. If we don't find a way to make our money work while we sleep, then we're going to work until we die. And that comes down to another thing that young folks are not taught, and that's about passive income. It's about actually putting your money, planting seeds with the money that you do save, so that that money continuously creates a passive income, or as some would call, cash flow. Because it doesn't matter what market cycle you're in, whether the markets are up, down, or sideways. If your money's in motion and you create different pockets of cash flow, you'll weather almost any storm. And I think the young folks, if they just at a young age started focusing on creating just different little silos, if you will, of passive income. Maybe one provides $100 a month, one's $50 a month, but it's their money working for them, and their money working for them creates this cash flow that would compound and it would grow to huge proportions. And then we wouldn't have problems where, people, when they get to retirement age, they have to rely on somebody else or some other system like Social Security or welfare in that case. They would rely on their own cash flow, the seeds that they planted at a very young age that have grown over the years and kept multiplying. And as I mentioned earlier, about dreaming. So if you spend your whole life working for somebody else and fulfilling somebody else's dreams and creating their perfect day for them, how can you create your perfect day if you're so busy day in and day out working at somebody else's goal? Entrepreneurship is something that I think you're going to see in the young folks. I think you're going to see more entrepreneurs. With the things that are happening out there, I think the entrepreneurs are going to take over and they're going to create more jobs. They're going to create more opportunities for themselves. But we need to get out of their way. We really need to just allow them to dream. We need to allow them and show them the path of how their money can work for them. And then we need to stop telling them that they can't do things, because clearly the way we were taught to operate with money and the way we were taught to use the money we work hard for isn't freaking working anymore. Look around. The middle class is vanishing, okay? You're starting to see more and more people in the lower class because their dreams are being shattered too and being taken away from them, and they're not being taught how to rise to the upper class. I would say, there's only one difference between success and failure. And let me describe it in this. If I went around to 100 20-year-olds and I asked every one of those 20-year-olds, are you going to be successful at the age of 65? What do you think they'd say? You're right. They'd say, yes, of course I'm going to be successful. I can't believe you'd even ask me that. I'm going to be a multimillionaire. I'm going to be a billionaire. I'm going to be successful to the highest level. So if that's what 120-year-olds say, but then we fast forward into the future, how many of them actually are successful? If 100% of those 20-year-olds said they were all going to be a success, but then at 65, how many are successful? 5%. That's it. Out of 100 people, only 5% will be financially successful. Only one will be wealthy. And wealthy, how do you determine wealthy? What is the true definition of 5%? It varies by state, but it's roughly making over $309,000. That's the definition of wealthy. So if somebody wants to get there, all they have to do is mimic what other wealthy people have done. Follow the path of the 5%ers, or heck, follow the path of the 1%ers. Don't keep following the path of people that haven't made it where you want to be. So if only 5 of those 120-year-olds are financially successful, why is that? It's simple. 95% of those 120-year-olds conformed. They conformed to somebody else's ideas. They conformed to what everybody else and what the world told them their life should look like. And what did the 5%, the 5 that were financially successful, do that was different? They created. They created their financial destiny. They created the dreams that they've held on to their whole lives. It's the biggest difference. Are you going to create and be the 1% or the 5%? Or are you going to conform and be the 95%? It all starts right here. We have to start teaching our youth, the young folks, if you will, how to actually dream, how to make their money work for them, how to be in control of their money, and how to go out there and stop being good consumers and start being good savers, but make that savings work for them by creating passive income. That's the magic sauce. Now, the decision really lies with you. Which is it going to be? Are you going to conform, or are you going to create your perfect day? So what gives me the right to give this advice to the young folks? Well, let me tell you, it's my story. It's how I grew up. I didn't grow up with money. I grew up having a dream. And I had a couple key people in my life that allowed me to keep that dream. And that dream resulted in me becoming an entrepreneur at the age of 16. See, at a very early age, I was fortunate to have a very terrible job. A job where I was degraded, a job where I was literally brought to believe that I couldn't do anything right every single day I was there. And I'll never forget the day I went in, and he started in on me right away. And I looked him in the eye and I said, I quit.
No, everything's fine. Hey, listen, I quit.
Now, I didn't know this then, but that was the moment when I quit trading hours for dollars. I didn't have it all figured out, but I knew I wanted to chase what my dreams were instead of helping that person or anyone else fulfill on their dreams. And that's how I started my first clothing line. Now a lot of things have happened since then. And I've had to go through a lot of roller coasters. I've had the opportunity to make a lot of money, and I've also had the same opportunity to lose all of that money. Not just once, not just twice, but 3 times. Because it took me 3 times, kind of like baseball, right? Strike 3, you're out. Well, it took me 3 times to figure out what I was doing wrong. And I never would have figured it out, not even as a high-level financial advisor. I didn't have it figured out. I was, as an advisor, taught to sell a product. I was taught to manage money, and I was taught to do what they taught me to do. And when I kept riding the roller coaster, having money, losing it all. Having money again, losing it all. I started to question, if I'm considered the financial advisor, why do I keep going through this cycle? And then I had a unique experience where I went to an event and I met 2 very successful people. I'd met other successful people, but for some reason these 2, they were multi-millionaires, started talking about money. And what they were talking about was the complete opposite of every single thing I'd ever been taught my entire life. It was the complete opposite of everything I'd been taught to do as an advisor that kept me on that roller coaster going up and down, having money, losing it, having money and losing it. And when I heard this, I didn't know what to make of it. At first, I said, this sounds too good to be true. And I almost did nothing with it, but then I said, maybe there's something to this. And I dove in. And all I did is I mimicked what these wealthy individuals did. And I started asking the questions about how they did it. How did you do what you've done? How did you make the millions of dollars? How are you living your perfect day? And how do you have freedom? Because I didn't have freedom. I was working really hard, trading hours for dollars, even in my own business. So I want to be clear about something. Even being an entrepreneur doesn't mean that you're not trapped in a job. Because you can create, as an entrepreneur, a job for yourself, and then it's very difficult to get out because you've created your own trap. These individuals, they created companies, but the companies didn't control them. They created companies that operated with or without them. They just guided it. They just stood there and they just basically put it in the direction they wanted it to go. They managed the business. Now it's taken me decades to figure this out. But if it's taken me decades, why can't it just take you 1 video or 1 change? Or why can't it just take you changing just 1 thing in your life? Well, it really can. But you have to make that decision. Remember I said earlier, for me, the decision was very clear from a very young age. I wanted to create. I wanted to create my businesses, my life, my dreams. And I watched a lot of people come and go in my life that tried to get me to conform to their ideas. And I shrugged them off. It was hard. Because you know who those people usually are? People closest to you. They're your friends, your families, your coworkers. They're the people that you're surrounded by that are always trying to knock you off of the pedestal called your dream. Because for some reason, they think that their way is the better way because it's the safe way, the low risk way. You know what the most risky thing you can do in your life? Not follow your dreams. Live somebody else's dream and tell me how risky that is, because I'll tell you what, if you look at all the people that are in the final stages of your life and you say to them, what do you regret? Every one of them will say, I regret not going for it. They never looked at how many hours they worked and said, boy, I wish I would have worked more hours. I wish I would have done more time in my business. No, it's always the things that they didn't do. That's why they say that the cemetery is the wealthiest place on earth, because it's where all the dreams die. Don't allow that to happen to you. Chase your dreams. Go out there just like I did and live your life, not somebody else's. That's my advice for all you young folks.